welcome to the show. It's good to be back. I was in Mexico and had a lot of fun, and then I had some cancellations that will hopefully be rescheduled. So make sure that you are subscribed to the show or you follow it wherever you listen so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're already subscribed or following, then I thank you very much. But also maybe it's time to take the next step in our relationship, and you could share the podcast on your social media. And maybe even someday you could write me a review. We can work up to that, though. That's not a rush. So my guest today, Mr. Paul Laine. Well, this is exciting because I think I've tried since day one when I started the show to try to get a member of Danger on this podcast. For some reason, I cannot get Bruno or Andy or Ted or even Rob, the new guitar player. I was close with Steve, but it just didn't happen. And then my good buddy Rob Laine, no relation to Paul, he's a host of Straight to Video podcast. He suggested, hey, why don't you get Paul Laine? You know, he was in Danger. And I was like, oh yeah. And I'm glad I did, because this was a really fun episode. He's got so many great stories of his solo career and starting out so young, and just how he hustled and he got a solo record. And then he learned from Steven Tyler, you know, on how to record and write music. And then he played on the Poison Flesh and Blood album, did backup vocals for every single song, he told me. And then he joined Danger. And then we talk about, you know, he's doing the TV and film work now, and he's got new projects, The Defiants, and another band called Set Junkies. So get comfortable, grab a nice beverage, and enjoy this episode. Please welcome Paul Laine to the show. I'm excited to chat with you. How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing, Chuck?
Great, just great. So yeah, I've done a little bit of a deep dive with your career and stuff. So I'm hoping we can just go through as much of it as we can. I don't think a lot of people know your story, because I know I didn't. And I'm a fan, so it should be fun.
Yeah, I kind of, kept everything on the down low, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of interviews with. I had to kind of like search here. There's a YouTube one here. There's a print, interview here. But I found out some great stuff, and your story's kind of interesting. What's that?
I said I work too much.
Yeah, well, you definitely do a lot. You got the solo career, Danger, then the Defiance, and then the film and TV stuff. So, yeah, if we could start at the beginning, though. So, was your first band a Rush tribute band called Holograph? Is that right?
Yes. How do you? Nobody knows that. That's funny. Yes. When I was a kid, I formed. I was a massive Rush fan. Like, what Canadian kid wasn't in the 80s? So yeah, I had a bunch of buddies in high school, and that's what we did. We did, mainly Rush tributes, which of course, that's not a good thing to be doing out in the club scene.
How old were you when that band started? 15. Okay. Yeah. So that was after because you left home at like 13 or something. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I left home. I was a foster kid, and then adopted, and then the adopted family situation was not good, and I got emancipation from my family, which was the Laine family, and basically struck out on my own at 13. Moved in with my boss and her husband. I had a job, and I kept going to school, and decided to make. I always was going to do music. I always knew that's what I was meant to do, but leaving home and getting out of that situation kind of, allowed that all to happen.
So music kind of saved you in a way, because I mean, you could have gone a different way with kids with troubled homes. I used to be a counselor. I saw this all the time. Kids with troubled homes, I mean, they get into drugs, they get messed up, and it's almost like music was your refuge.
Absolutely. I don't know where I'd be without music. That was just like my focus, and I guess I was always writing songs even as a child, but this just allowed me the freedom to go pursue it. And I had very, very supportive people that I was living with at the time.
Was this the people that where you worked at the recording studio, or was that later?
No, I had a job at a hotel when I was, I'll roll it a little bit. When I was 12, my father had a nervous breakdown and then basically never came home again. And I grew up on a farm, And so me and my brother and my sisters, basically we just got jobs when my father wasn't there anymore. And so yeah, I worked at a hotel at night. So I would go, I'd work the farm in the morning at 5, go to school, start my job at 4 in the afternoon after school, and work till 2 in the morning, and then bike home and do it all over again. So I think when I was young, it taught me a huge work ethic growing up that way. And sorry, what was the question? I think
no, it's just because at one point you started working in a recording studio, and I guess you made some sort of deal with the studio owner that you would help people write songs. Like, how old were you when you're doing that?
So yeah, that was right around the same time when I was starting to do my first demos at 50. And there was a recording studio not too far away from me. I live on Vancouver Island. I know you're from Issaquah, so you kind of know.
How did you know that?
Because I look stuff up.
Okay. Yeah, we were close. I used to drive to Vancouver to drink when I was 19 because you could drink in Canada.
Right. Because 21 is Washington State, right? Right. Yeah. So yeah, there was a little recording studio, a little 16-track studio, and I recorded my first demos there. And there was a fellow by the name of Scott Littlejohn who ran the studio, and obviously I was completely enamored with recording music, and I just bugged the hell out of him and said, tell me stories about the studio. Tell me what being an engineer is like. Tell me about the clients that come in and what's the weirdest, thing that happens in the studio, like day to day. And he goes, well, people show up with poems and they think that they can record it, that's what I do here. And I don't. And I said, well, how about you take me on? I'll compose music on the spot for whatever, and you'll get the client, and I'll get to learn how to use the studio. That's the deal I'll make you. I think he sort of looked at me and thought, who is this kid? And eventually that happened one day. He called me and I started working with him. And so fast forward, a few years later when he was redoing his studio and, bringing the technology was obviously changing from tape to digital. He sold me all of his studio equipment for like next to nothing. And so I had my own, home studio from that point on. He helped set me up, and I was still a teenager. And that kind of got me into being able to record my own stuff and really experiment a lot.
That's awesome. And then you started doing like a solo career. Did you ever think of like putting a band together though? Like, why did you want to be a solo artist? That seems odd for such a young age.
I didn't want to be a solo artist at all. So when I was very naive. Like I was, a teenager when I started shopping for record deals. I got a deal when I was young, and I thought wrongly that, because I composed all the music, I thought that I could get the deal and then just be the guitar player, right? And I wanted to be Eddie I wanted to be a guy behind the scenes kind of thing. I didn't want to be in the forefront. I certainly wasn't going to be the singer in my original, concept of what I wanted to do. But invariably, my voice was on all the songs and.
Right. So it was more of a songwriter, because I think, now to explain this story where you met with some record executive, it was like the guy that signed Bryan Adams, and he listened to all your music and then he said, you're good, but you're not good enough. I mean, that could have been a killer right there. That could have like stopped you, but you just you recreated it or whatever.
I just told him, like, how am I not good? I asked him, how am I not good enough? I told him, he was a guy named Michael Godin. Yeah. He signed Bryan Adams to A&M. And he was, at that time, he was also the manager of Paul Jans, who was like a Canadian artist at the time that was, doing well here. So I just asked Michael, I go, so what do I need to do? Tell me how I need to fix this. And he said, he gave me 5 songs. He said, go home and find out why these are hits and why yours are lacking what these have. And I was 17 at that point. And I was fucking crushed, but it was like the best advice ever. And then he's the guy who I ended up negotiating when I got all the record contracts coming in. from the different labels, I hired him to negotiate my deal.
Wow. Wait, so how did you, so 17, you raised 70 grand to record.
Yes.
How the hell did you get 70 grand at age 17? That's insane.
I'm a hustler. I'm a hustler. You know what? I was playing the bar scene. I had then switched from being in a Rush tribute act to in a top 40 band.
Okay.
It's funny, man. I feel like so embarrassed having this conversation. It's so nerdy.
Why?
So yeah.
Why? It's cool. I've never got to be in a band. I think it sounds amazing.
But a Rush tribute act is sort of like, that's the nerdiest thing musically you could do.
Is it? Was there? I'm assuming there was a lot of those in Canada, though, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think like I think a lot of us growing up with that scene were like, they were like the pinnacle. I mean, I look back now, I still love Rush, but I go, yeah, you can't play Spirit of the Radio in a nightclub.
It reminds me, I just had Paul Gilbert from, he was in Mr. Big, and he was saying like when he would play, instead of getting like groupies, he'd get like people coming up to him after asking for guitar lessons. Like he was like a music nerd. He's hilarious. If you listen to his interviews, he's really funny.
I did a tour with, I did the Flying in a Blue Dream tour with Joe Satriani across Canada, and it was like totally the same scene. Like this is really, I mean, like this hair metal thing, whatever the hell I was, and opening for Joe Satriani, and I would just like face this, thousands of dudes in black t-shirts, like get off the stage. And then afterwards, just like no girls, just a huge lineup of dudes asking Joe, dude, what kind of pedal do you use?
Right. So anyway, so you're playing in a top 40 band, and so then you got somehow you got $70,000.
Yeah. So what I did is I always had these, where I grew up, and much like where you grew up, it's all loggers and fishermen here where I live.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, especially. And all those guys drank heavy and partied heavy, and I would meet them in the nightclubs, and it'd always be like, kid, and I was young, right? Obviously I was underage playing the nightclubs. And, they were always saying like, you should do something with this. And I kind of formulated this plan in my head. I knew that I could start a limited company. I was a weird, nerdy kid who read Canadian music law books, and I was trying to just I had this book called The Platinum Rainbow, which was another really influential book when I was a teenager, just basically a step-by-step of how you should try to approach getting a record deal. And so between meeting people and formulating this whole idea that because I had no money, I knew I could start a limited company. So I did that. And I knew I could have 14 investors. So then I started picking out all the drunk fishermen, logger dudes I knew who were throwing cash around. And we have a thing in Canada called RRSP, Registered Retirement Savings Plan, which is like, I don't know what the equivalent is in a 401k or whatever. Okay. Right. So you can buy these every year. And that was my spiel to all these drunk dudes saying, hey, I think I could make you a better return if you invest with me than putting that money into an RRSP.
Wow.
And it worked. It worked. Anyways, I think at the end of the day, just, a lot of folks wanted to back me and were very kind. And that's how I started the company. I used that to fund recording at a bigger studio. And because my idea was that I would make a record, and at least I would have that record if, after I shopped it and no one wanted it, I would have something, So that's how I got my start. And then I used that money to go down to LA and start shopping for a deal, and just, hustled my way into getting a contract.
So when you just go to LA, cause this is before the internet. So I don't understand how you're doing all this stuff. Like you're finding the guy that signed Bryan Adams and you're going to LA. How do you even know where to go? You're just knocking on doors, literally, physically?
That's essentially, well, I'll tell you a little story behind it. It's, so yeah, in the late 80s, you had to know somebody at the record labels, right? I knew nobody. I knew a couple names, but I knew that LA was the place that I had to go. And so I just started showing up at every record company and getting forcibly ejected sometimes because I would go, I'd make it, to the front desk and say, hey, I want to meet with somebody. And they're like, sorry, you need to know someone here. We don't accept unsolicited material. I'm like, well, can't you tell me who your head of A&R? No, we can't do that. Beat it. So what I started, one day I'm sitting outside Capitol Records and I'm going, I can't go home. I've taken all this money from guys who could certainly kill me. Remember, I'm a kid, so
right.
Adults are very scary at this point.
Yeah, that's what's so amazing about how you're like you had some balls to do all this stuff.
Sure. Well, I couldn't figure out how I was supposed to get to know who was working. And anyways, I see a bicycle courier walk out of Capitol Records, and I was like, light bulb. That guy delivers. He would know a lot of people in there. So I walked up to him and I said, hey, like, what's it worth for you to just give me like one name? The guy who handles, rock music, who's the A&R guy at Capitol? And he's like, $20. Boom, gave me a name. So that's what I did. I went outside every record company, got paid for names from delivery people.
Wow, this is awesome.
And then I went back to my, I had known enough from reading this book, which was like the Platinum Rainbow book, that entertainment lawyers are pretty much the people who did all the contracts, right?
Sure.
So, and that was an in. If you could find an entertainment lawyer who would take you on, that would get you into the labels a lot quicker. So I only knew of one entertainment lawyer, and I didn't know him. And his name was Ken Dangerfield, and he was Bryan Adams' lawyer, and he was the entertainment lawyer in Vancouver. And so then I called as my own manager, and I would say, hey, this is whatever made up name, calling, Ken Dangerfield referred me to you.
So you're dropping the name. So like when you go into the name, okay.
And I got the meeting. I got a meeting with everybody.
Huh.
And at the same time, I'm going to be dating myself. At the same time, there was an artist named, do you remember Tiffany?
Yeah. Tiffany was big.
Yeah. So I was reading a newspaper. This is at the same time I'm getting these meetings. I'm reading this newspaper about Tiffany getting emancipation from her family, right? And she had this lawyer, and they had interviewed the lawyer, this guy named Ross Schwartz, and he was an attorney for the Beach Boys and for the Stones and whatever. And now Tiffany, I didn't know anything. I just saw his name and I'm like, I'm going to look this guy up. I got emancipation from my family. Maybe this guy will listen to me. So again, I phoned him. I got to use the Ken Dangerfield thing, got into his, and this is an important part of the story, got into his office. And he hadn't heard anything yet, took my cassette, went back into his office. He said, just wait here. And then he came back out after about a half an hour and he said, come into my office. All right. And he goes, okay. He goes, you don't know Ken Dangerfield.
Busted.
Right. Totally. And like my face get white, just totally went white. And he goes, but I appreciate your moxie.
Yeah. Moxie. That's a good word for it.
Yeah. And he goes, and I think you can write hits. And he said, I'm going to get your record deal. And within a week, I had 3 offers, one, from Elektra, one from CBS back then, is now Sony, and one from A&M. So
that's awesome.
It went from, I went from being a broke ass kid to, getting all these offers. So that was amazing. And he was the guy that, basically took me almost to the finish line. And at the end, I brought in Michael Godin, who had originally told me to go back.
Right. Okay.
Right. To finish off negotiating.
Okay. So when is this time when, tell my audience this story. I heard you tell the story about how you were at a club where I think Skid Row was playing and like Aerosmith and Bon Jovi and all these guys and Mike Reno.
That was the day I signed my record deal.
Okay. And you get kicked out? What the hell?
Yeah, I got kicked out. I got forcibly ejected once again by a tiny little man who Doc, what's his name?
Doc McGee,
Doc McGee,
the famous
Doc
manager.
threw me out in the alley.
Because like he said, like, you know, you weren't supposed to be back there, but didn't you say like, hey, I'm friends with Mike Reno and like, or
Yeah, well, Mike had brought me there. So Mike picked me up and he's like, because we were being managed by the same manager at the time, which is Bruce Allen, right? And Bryan Adams' manager as well. So he took me out. It was May 12th, 1989.
89.
Yeah. And so Bon Jovi had played the night before with Skid Row, I think Cinderella, and at the stadium. Aerosmith were in town recording at Little Mountain Studios. The Cult were also in town recording with Bob Rock at the time. So all of these folks were there, and whatchamacallit was just finishing off. So what's that band called? You know, Vince Neil. Sorry,
Motley Crue.
Motley Crue were finishing off.
Dr. Feelgood.
Dr. Feelgood, yeah. So everybody was there.
Wow.
And Skid Row would always play on that tour. Skid Row would do their own show the night after if they had a day off. So that was the next day. That was the May 12th. I had signed my deal that day. Mike picked me up. Let's go see Skid Row, and all these people were there. Yeah. So
did you get to meet any other people before you got kicked out though?
Well, no, I got let back in, but I waited for like 20 minutes outside in the alley going,
oh shit.
This is like, dude, you got to understand, this is my introduction into rock and roll. This should be like the greatest day of my life. And I'm standing alone in the alley behind this big club going, well, I guess this is about right.
Oh man, that's still cool that you even got to be back there, even if you did get kicked out for part of it. That's
yeah. So that was so then, you know, I got let back in, and then that's one of the first time I met, you know, Bon Jovi and Steven Tyler and all those folks.
So does Steven Tyler, do you kind of have a relationship with him? Because explain this, like you're recording your solo album and they're also making Pump at the same studio, and so you got to watch them make Pump.
Yeah, so Bruce Fairbarn was the guy who produced my first album, right? And at that time, both him and Bob Rock were the two biggest record, arguably, anyways.
Oh yeah,
rock producers in the world,
for sure. Both in Vancouver. Both
working out of Little Mountain Studios. So I was in pre-production with Bruce while he was making Pump. So it was more like a fatherly thing. Like, you know, he goes, I want you to watch how I work while I'm finishing making this album. So I did like 3 months of pre-production with him, basically meaning I would bring in my demos. I'd meet with him on breaks. And he worked, Bruce worked very clockwork. He'd come to the studio at 9 a.m. He'd leave at 3, go, take 3 hours off, come back, around 6 or 7, and then work another 2 hours and go home. He'd always go home to like be with his kids, coach soccer, and then come back and work in the studio. So I would like get in those periods. He just wanted me to watch real guys at work and soak in how the sessions were going to go when I made my record with him, which was next. So yeah, I got to watch Tyler work, and immediately felt like I don't belong here. When you watch someone who's that creative work in that, it forever changed me, because it got me unstuck in terms of how I thought about writing music, because Steven Tyler is extremely off the cuff. Like the first idea is probably the best idea that always works. He would never, he would always finish doing the vocal parts last. So, what a lot of people don't realize is like, he is an amazing drummer. Amazing.
Oh, I did not even know he played drums.
Yeah. He's better than Joey Kramer. So that's why, like in the Pump thing, Joey Kramer is they shot a bunch of video and they turned it into like a little documentary, right?
Okay.
Joey Kramer's going like, Steven is the nervous twitch in my eye, meaning that Steven Tyler would keep going back on the street. No, you got to play it like this, you know, and then he'd play it perfectly.
Wow.
Because the guy is like, you know, just that groove, and that is Aerosmith. It comes from that guy. You know, he would be singing guitar lines. He would be singing horn lines. He would just be like throwing it out there. And it's like watching a jazz player improvise, but he's doing it with music, with composing, right?
Yeah. And didn't you say he would compose and rework things like on the spot, and he would fight to do it his way? And you learned that from him too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the fact that he's like, how he got me unstuck was he would always just sing a melody. I would watch melodies become lyrics, and lyrics would happen way at the months later. So, you know, when he was composing Pump, he was just singing phonetic nonsense.
Oh,
right. So instead of loving about elevator, it'd be like,
okay.
So getting out of his own way, knowing that you could go back and replace that with, and not stopping the composing. So that's what I took on. You know, I went, okay, I don't have to sit there and do things linearly. I can just compose. I can get that melody out of the way and not get hung up on it, because I can always go back and revisit it and at least flesh out the rest of this. So that allowed me to start composing a lot quicker and going, oh, you know, light bulb moment.
So you learned from watching. Did you ever have any interactions with him? Does he ever say, hey kid, like, let me give you some advice or anything like that?
Yeah, I talked to him quite a few times. I was extremely nervous, and, you know, very Wayne's World, I'm not worthy in those moments. And also did not want to get kicked out, in terms of, you know, Fairbarn always is like, don't get in the way of any of the creative process. Just, you're here to be a fly on the wall. So, you know, I didn't really speak to him unless I was spoken to.
Okay.
So,
gotcha.
And you got to remember, it's, it was extremely, I was extremely nervous and shy around him. I think I would be to this day.
Sure. Yeah, no, I would be nervous too to have him on my show for sure. That'd be fun, but it'd be scary at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what it was, but it was great. I took away lifelong tools from watching that.
That's amazing. That's a great introduction. So then you record this solo album, Stick It in Your Ear. Is that what it's called? Right? Yeah. It's got the cool artwork where it's like the guy's putting the CD literally in like his brain. It's cool. I don't know who designed that.
That was Bruce Fairbarn's idea, because he loved this artist named Van Arno, which is this guy who's amazing. He's kind of like the Salvador Dali of
I love Salvador Dali.
Yeah, San Francisco. Look the guy up one day,
okay.
Van Arno, and he's incredible. So that was in fact a giant part of the budget of the record was like spent on.
Okay, well. And then
Bruce Fairbarn.
Yeah. So did you play guitar on a lot of the album too?
Yeah, I did. I didn't want to. I figured I'll just do all the rhythm stuff. And I had a guitar player at the time, but he had gotten carpal tunnel syndrome. And just before we started making the record, he lost the use of a finger. So he was getting surgery. And, and I was like, what am I going to do? And then Fairbarn's like, I'm going to get Zakk Wylde in to do some.
Whoa.
Right? Because that
would have been amazing.
Yeah, it would have been amazing.
What happened?
Well, what happened is we made the whole record, and then we were just going to do the guitar solos at the end. That's normal, anyways.
Yeah.
And then Zakk, for some reason, couldn't come up on the date, and we only had the last week of the studio book before the next act was in, and then Fairbarn's just like, you do it. And I was like, okay. So I ended up doing the majority of the lead playing on the record. And, you know, to this day, I wish someone else had done it. But
so you're not happy with how it turned out? I mean, Zakk Wylde, like that's insane.
Yeah, he would have killed it.
Yeah.
I was so excited.
Oh, wow. But you had some pretty good players. You had Pat Stewart, who had played with Bryan Adams, and Mickey Curry, who had also played with Bryan Adams and Hall & Oates and stuff. So that's pretty cool. And then you got to tour with, was it Richard Marx and Bryan Adams?
Yeah, I just played shows with Richard Marx and Adams. Adams wasn't doing a lot of shows back then because he was still doing the Waking Up the Neighbors album at that time. So yeah, Jones, I don't know, played with mainly festivals in Canada and then solo shows in the US. For some reason, like I signed an American record deal, so it really made it harder for me to play in Canada as opposed to other places in the world, meaning like radio in America started backing me because I was a Canadian arm of the record company always treats you when you're signed directly to America as an American artist. So they give you much less play than if you were signed directly to Canada. So at that time, again, it sort of down the line that helped me out because, bands like Danger Danger knew who I was, and Europe took a shining to me, and same with Japan. And I think that wouldn't have happened had I signed a Canadian deal.
Okay, so you're with Elektra, right?
Yes.
So did they have like a Christmas party where you get to see Metallica and Motley Crue and all the other Elektra bands, or how does that? You have any interactions with them?
No, I wish.
That would have been so cool.
Yeah, no, I look at because I became they signed me as a solo artist. From the moment you sign that contract, you're busy. And I was that first year was just work at first and second year. And then, it all fell apart, and I left my management company, and then I ended up, I guess we can go to the next thing. I ended up getting a call from Danger Danger.
Right. Well, before that though, like how did you sang backup vocals on some big albums, Poison's Flesh and Blood and the Scorpions Face the Heat, and you almost did it for AC/DC too.
Right, because they were all Bruce Fairbarn albums.
Okay.
And so Bruce liked what I did when I was working on my record, and then he just started calling me to do all these other albums. So that was amazing. I did the AC/DC thing because I was on tour with Satriani.
Okay. Right.
Date. So I was like psyched. I knew I was going to do the AC/DC record, and then, you're on tour. So again, that's not a bad thing either.
Did you get a credit on the Poison one though, or I couldn't find that on the?
Yeah, so I'm the last name on the record.
Okay.
What's really funny is I'm still fighting for my rights on that album with SAG-AFTRA. Because what they did is they just said, special thanks to Paul Laine. It's on the credits, but they didn't give me the vocal credit. And then they did the same thing on the Swallow This Live album because they used all my background vocals on the live record, right? Because the band never sung the background stuff live. They just had it playing off a click track sound.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought Cece and Ricky and Bobby could sing. They don't sing backup.
In fact, they weren't even allowed in the studio the 3 days that I was cutting background tracks. So my doing the Poison record, I got called in by Fairbarn. He just said, listen, I want you to just throw everything you can at this record. And so I just got to compose lots of parts for it. And then he said, the band's not going to be in here because I don't want any outside influence on this stuff. So that's how we tracked that record. But then they never put a proper vocal credit on the record.
That's kind of like a Milli Vanilli kind of thing almost.
Yeah. So, but
it's backing vocals, but still. Are you on every song?
Sorry, what?
Are you on every song on Flesh and Blood?
Every single song, yeah.
Wow.
Every single one. Yeah. But that happened all the time. Like the guys in Danger Danger sang backups on Cherry Pie.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they got credit for that though.
Did they? Okay. I didn't know if their name was on the record or not. But
and Cece plays the lead on Cherry Pie. That's credited as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
So yeah, you didn't but you got credit on Face the Heat, the Scorpions one.
Yeah, I did. And I just did I did the Boys Like Girls record, and they just credited it as the Vancouver Mafia.
Huh.
So, I did Love Drunk and all of that, whatever that Heartbreak song is. And
wow.
yeah, and then Hinder, all the same producer, same setup again.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Yeah, this is all stuff that's off the record, I guess, or
Yeah, I did it. What's that album called? Take It to the Limit.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds about
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
So
But so yeah, so then so back in going back in time, so you get the call from Danger. This is the question. I don't even know if you know the answer. Why did they? What was the problem they had with Ted? Was it money? Was it creative differences? Or I never figured out why they fired him. I mean, it's all water under the bridge now, anyways. But
yeah, I think that I don't know the actual reason, but I think that the marriage was just getting to the point where they were fighting all the time. I mean, look, when you have two guys like Steve and Bruno who were the composers of that group, I mean, essentially it was their band, right? And then you're running a band. Like when you're the main writers, you're making the majority of the money. Okay, not necessarily from live, but from album sales and things like that. So that's all fine and dandy in the beginning. When you're starting out, but as time goes on, people want to get paid more or feel like they're due more. And I don't know if that was the situation, but I've known enough bands to know that that's generally the situation. And the start of all the fighting, as soon as money comes into play, how do you make it fair and equitable for all? Because sometimes with some people, it's not fair.
Right.
They don't feel it's fair and equitable when truly it is.
Yeah, that's a complicated thing. Cause like on the Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction, it's like it's like credited, they wrote every song together. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure Steven Adler, didn't write a lot of those songs. Like he plays the drums and he does the drum parts, but is that an equal part to the person who wrote the lyrics and the melodies and all that?
Yeah, I can tell you, no, it's not. It's not. It's when you compose this stuff, you give up a year of your life, and then the drummer comes in and plays his part in 5 minutes or a day.
Yeah.
And so you can see that as success goes on, and everyone's either that's. I mean, look, they try. Bands who set it up that way are bands that are trying to not break up. But at the end of the day, when you renegotiate upon success, and I've seen it time and time again, the writers generally go, all right, enough, guys. Enough. We're going to take the lion's share and pay you guys a salary, So, that happened with the Eagles. It happened with Bon Jovi. There's a million of those stories.
Yeah, it's negotiating, I guess. And I mean, yeah, that's the same thing. Like Ted, maybe he didn't write the songs, but I mean, he was the face of the band at the time. So I could see why, I could see his side of it too. But yeah, at the same time, you can't really give him the composition credit if he's not writing the song. So
Sure. And then if there's, if the people are getting upset about money inside the band because, the writers are making a little bit more, it's a good argument. I mean, without the hits being written, you have no career.
True. Very true. Yeah. And it's like, and now it's like that argument probably doesn't mean as much because everyone makes money off the concerts, not necessarily the album sales as much.
That's right. Yeah. The whole thing has shifted. We live in interesting times now. It's weird for me to go to these festivals and see bands that are like, killing it online, but making nothing for playing, like Sweden Rock or whatever, because and they don't necessarily have album sales. So there's a lot of illusion going on out there.
For sure. So you joined Danger. I love that Cockroach record. I mean, obviously I didn't hear it till years later, but like, it's interesting because there's two versions. There's yours and then Ted's, but Ted didn't do the Jim Croce cover. Did you only sing on that one, The Time in the Bottle?
I think so, but okay. I don't know.
That's a great cover though.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was fun. That's the last thing we did. And Bruno actually played cello on that.
Oh, okay.
Because he's Bruno plays cello. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, he's talented. He plays guitar, bass, keyboards, and I guess I didn't know cello too.
Yeah. No, he's an incredible musician. Incredible.
Yeah, and then you do the Dawn album, which I just learned from listening to the interviews that you were originally going to call that Gasoline Bath, like change the name of the band. That's pretty crazy.
Well, at the time I had, when I joined Danger Danger, I just left a lawsuit with Elektra and Bruce Allen and that whole thing for all of my solo career. And then I joined Danger Danger and did the Cockroach record. And then all of a sudden, another lawsuit.
That sucks.
And yeah, so that record didn't come out. And I'm just going, am I just like forever going to be in lawsuits and not have a career anymore? And so we decided that let's just write a record, because I hadn't written anything with them. Cockroach was written, right? So Dawn, and you know what that era was like in the sort of early to mid 90s. Everything was changing, obviously, with grunge and what was going on, and bands were just trying to save their careers and save themselves. We decided, well, let's just write a record as a band, and it doesn't have to be Danger Danger, right? Because I hadn't been released with them, and so this could potentially be a whole new thing. So we were all kind of excited, like, fuck doing Danger Danger, and let's just. And then one day I'm pouring gas at the guys flew up here from New York. They stayed here for 3 months. I had my studio here on the island, and I overfilled the gas tank and got gas all over Bruno. And he's like, dude, Gasoline Bath. And then we're like, that'd be a great name.
It is kind of a cool name, especially at the time.
Right? Yeah.
That would have been a perfect 90s band name. Right. Did you say that you saw Alice in Chains? Like they would come up and play shows in Vancouver before they were famous?
Even worse than that. I have a funny story. Way worse than that. I was so the day I signed my record deal, I met my kind of first girlfriend at that time. The same night, I was hanging out with. I was cool that night, right? Other than getting kicked out in the alley. Anyways, so this girl took me home, and there was an Alice in Chains poster. This is like on her bedroom wall. I've never told this story publicly.
Awesome.
So I'm looking, and she's like, yeah, I dated this guy named Laine, and I go, this is me just after signing, right? I reach over above her waterbed and I tear down the poster and I go, these guys are going nowhere.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And I remember the poster said like, what was the club? It was down in Gastown in Vancouver. It's like the Town Pump was the name of the club. Right? Alice in Chains at the Town Pump. Like, yeah, fuck these guys.
That's funny that you could remember that. Like, and then
totally, because of course I remember it, because 4 years later they were like one of the biggest bands in the world.
And you're like, wait a minute, that was the one I said we're going nowhere.
Right. And I had long left that girl that I was dating.
That's hilarious.
But every time I thought about it, I would just get this little bit of like embarrassment. That she would be sitting at home going, yeah, fuck you.
Yeah. Wow.
I made the wrong choice. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. So with Danger, man, you guys had a few albums together. You never did any shows though did you do any shows in the States or never?
Yeah, we did. We just toured the East though.
Of course. Never came to Seattle.
Yeah. We just did the East and the Midwest and quite a few tours doing that. But, again, back then, because grunge was king, it was like all nightclubs.
So you never thought of doing like one of those? Because I remember there was like, what did they call it? Like the Rock Never Stops tour, where they would get like a bunch of bands of that era and tour together. You guys never wanted to be a part of one of those things or anything?
I think it always came down to financial reasons. Like someone would offer us a tour for this amount of money and we go, okay, we'll go do that. But then to go and do those things, like Steve and Bruno had already been doing stadium and, tours with Kiss and arenas with Warren and whoever else. So there wasn't a tendency to want to eat a bunch of humble pie back then. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm going to go out with 6 acts now and try to keep my career alive. A lot of bands felt I can just, I'll just take the shows that that we're offered the right amount of money and we'll just do that. So,
Okay.
you know, I understood it.
You guys went to Europe though, right? Or
Yeah, we did 3 months with UFO.
oh wow.
Which was, that was a really weird tour. Great tour, but Michael Schenker was with them as well, so full lineup. And Michael Schenker is fucking crazy.
In a good way, or
no, terrible. Like, he'd fucking come in after a show and he traveled separately. You know, he'd pick up a chair and he'd be upset with the band and he'd walk in the dressing room and just fucking throw a chair at them and start screaming at them.
What? Why?
Paid separately. He had his own limo that just followed the tour bus around. Because the dude is nuts. Great player. Amazing player.
Interesting. I did not know that. I mean, I know he's a great guitar player. I didn't know he was crazy guy though.
Oh yeah. I just witnessed like the weirdest behavior. And even the crew was like he would do stuff like, okay, like if we had a night where people were just shouting danger, danger still while UFO walked on stage, he would then punish us for that, and we would have to like, okay, their power's cut in half and no lights. And this is all like, big theaters and concert halls and stuff throughout Europe. And the crew was all American, and they would come to us and just go, dude, we're really sorry that this is, so we're just going to show you the power amps are here. We're going to leave. And whatever you guys do before we go back on stage. So we had a guy sitting like every night right by where the power amps were, waiting for Michael. He would come and check them, make sure that they were turned to half.
Okay.
And as soon as Michael would leave,
wow.
Nuts.
These are grown men. This is crazy.
Yeah. And I felt bad for the rest of UFO because they had to put up with a guy who was quite often unkind.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Cause I just had Rob, the bass player, on my show a couple months, and I was asking like, hey, do you guys, you have a few like final shows I think they're doing. I was like, do you think you'd bring up Michael Schenker? And he's just like, oh, I don't know about that. Now I know why that they don't want to.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But then, and then you did this project, Shugaazer. My buddy from Europe, he told me about that, and I checked it out. And I was like, oh, I had to find it on YouTube. It's not even on Spotify, I don't think. But it was like really like a modern sounding 90s kind of rock. I feel like that could have been a big hit album. Yeah.
So the guy who ran MTM, which was a label that we were signed to with Danger, guy named Magnus Soderqvist, Swedish guy, got offered a new record label by Europe. At that time, the biggest distribution company in Europe was a company called Gins. And so they offered him, and MTM was the most successful independent record label. So Magnus flew out to see me in England the night we recorded the Live and Nude.
Oh, okay.
That's my last
Danger
band ever.
Yeah.
So it's nice to get that on record, so to speak. I didn't know it was going to be my last night. He flew down and offered me a record deal, and I was like, he goes, I hear what I had always been writing the more modern stuff for Danger. We decide after Dawn, we decided to write separately. Steve and Bruno needed to write together, and I needed not to write with them because the fighting was just too much and made me miserable. So
wait, you fought with them or they fought with each other or both?
No, just me with them. And fighting is the wrong term. Just, I didn't agree with direction and stuff. I was always like, we should try and take the band into a more modern way of doing things instead of just, rightly or wrongly. That's just what I wanted to do.
Sure.
So when I got, when Magnus flew down to see me and told me about the launch of this new label, and he said, I want you to be one of the first artists I sign. And he had heard some demos that I had done. Yeah. So I was like, well, this is my jumping off point. This is where it's time to go back to just being me. And then sadly, Magnus left the label like a month into the album getting released.
Another tragedy. Another.
So I go, oh, there's another. At that point, that's when I left. I was so frustrated. And that was around 2003, 2004, that time. So around there, I decided to just be on the other side of the console.
Is that when you started the film and TV studio or whatever?
Well, I moved my studio from here to Vancouver, and I started, getting into doing commercial work, and, I was still working with like pop artists at that time. And that's when I started working, like singing on the Brian House records, the Hinder albums, and Boys Like Girl, that whole era. And I just, I was trying to just stay on the other side of the business, because I was done.
But you weren't you. So this was when you're working your studio job in the day, and then you're playing the clubs at night and sleeping 3 hours a night or whatever for 7 years.
For 7 years, yeah. For 7 years, I did that.
How the hell did you do that? That's insane.
I don't know. It took me a long time to get over my anger at myself for for beating a dead horse for so long. The good thing about it is that I made a lot of connections and worked on some good records, and everything leads you to the next part of your life, right? I knew that I really needed to be. I was kind of miserable, and I wanted to, just see if I could get a record deal, have a shot, not even have a record deal, just like make records, and hopefully someone would buy them. I just needed to do it again. So I started the Darkhorse thing.
Okay, yeah, right, yeah, that one. So is that what you were doing in the clubs, or were you doing a variety of things like cover bands and other stuff?
I played in I worked for the Roxy nightclub in Vancouver, which was a live music venue. And they paid very, very well. And I played in 3 different bands. So I was like in a country band on Sunday night. And then, Monday was rock. Saturday was rock band. Tuesday was like a punk alternative band. Wednesday was like all British invasion music. Thursday was like playing with a DJ and a band at the same, doing mashups.
Okay.
It was crazy. And then I had Friday off, and then I was back to work on Saturday.
Wow.
So, and then I worked in the studio from 10 in the morning till 7 at night. And I played from 9 at night until 3 in the morning.
That's insane. Yeah. I guess it's good. Like you said, it's good that you made all these connections though. And
yeah. And, whatever. I pivoted and decided, to move back to the island and get my studio out of the city and take it back. I held on to my house all of these years that I was away working. And what's really funny is 2012, January 1st, I had moved into my house. It had like no furniture, anything. I had internet. And I get an email from Frontiers. I literally woke up that day and said, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to make this all happen?
Yeah.
And, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, you're frozen a little bit, but I can hear you.
Yeah, you are. Sorry. Sorry. I don't know if there's a problem with my internet's good. I don't know what's going on. I was offered a record contract, and I had to turn it down and say no.
Isn't that what you had wanted this whole time though?
Well, yeah, but I was bent on doing this Southern rock thing, and I'd written this entire album, and I thought, no, I don't. Now's not the time. I was really happy with the music I was writing, and I had made some connections in Nashville, and that just seemed like what I wanted to do, and it was kind of like, Southern rock with country influence, and I don't know what Darkhorse was, but it was kind of, I felt that music at that time. So Frontiers bugged me every year, and I was like, no, and then they called Bruno. And they knew that him and I were friends, and so the whole Defiance thing ended up being a sentimental thing for me. It was like I was just like, okay, Bruno and I making a record together could be really interesting. And I love the guy, one of my best friends. And so, yeah, we wrote this record in 3 months, and I thought nothing of it. I thought, no one's going to buy this. No one gives a shit. And who cares? We wrote a fun record, and then that's just changed my whole life.
Really? Yeah, because it got really good reviews, and then you've done shows, and
and it got me the television gig.
Oh, it did. That's how you got the television thing.
Yeah, it just kind of put me on the map as a writer again. And
Okay.
it put me on the map as a performer.
Yeah, and the album, didn't it chart in Italy or something on Billboard charts? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, in Europe, it's like we entered the chart at 44, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, never thought that would happen. Not that that's anything to brag about, but you got to understand, I went from sort of trying to make my way back into the business as a writer and performer to that, and it happened. So, and then one thing leads to another, and you kind of see, oh, I can diversify. I can write for film now. I can do what I should have always been doing.
Yeah, and you've got 2 records with the Defiants, and then is there a third one coming out?
We just finished writing it, and now we start retracking it. Not next week, the weekend. We're waiting for Van Romain to come off. He's on tour with Enrique Iglesias right now.
Okay.
He's the drummer that drummed on the first album.
Right.
And so we were going to get him to do the second album as well, but then that didn't work out because of his touring schedule.
Okay.
So this time we kind of got it planned, and so he gets home on the 21st of November, and probably give him a week, and we start tracking that record from the ground up again.
Okay,
we always demo up the entire record.
It's all written and everything then.
It's written, and there is a version of the record that's done. But it's the demo version.
Okay.
And then we go back and retrack, and then we just fix everything. We do it old school. We start with the drum tracks, and then recut bass, guitars, keyboards, vocals, everything.
Okay.
And do it for real. So now,
Is there any, can you tell us anything about it? Is there any song titles, or is it I'm assuming it's going to be a similar sound to the first 2. And
yeah, it's always, look, what we try and do is a progression each record, in our minds, at least anyways.
Mm-hmm.
We try and build on what we did in the past and make it just a little bit more modern. This record is interesting. It's definitely building on from the last one, but there's a couple surprises in there. So which we hope that people like. Okay. Or they'll crucify us for.
Yeah. It's like, you don't want to say,
so happen, right?
It's surprise. So you can't tell me what it is. Like, you got like country songs or like.
No, nothing like that. Okay. It's just like, when you want to stretch out a little more musically on a couple tracks. Sure. We try and do that every record anyways.
Right.
Like, oh, let's explore this a little more. Like, let's add this kind of influence in. And Bruno had this ballad idea, which kind of had this Moroccan cool vibe behind it. And I'm like, you know what? People might hate us for doing this, or they might love it. They might actually love this. I just find that those kind of songs, a little bit different, are the sleepers. People feel like, I hated it when I first listened to the record, and then it ends up being the song that they like the most.
Totally. That happens all the time, for sure. Yeah. And you write all different styles for the film and TV, right? Like, you write dance music and everything.
Dude, I just spent a week writing K-pop for a show called Celebrity Moms.
Wow. How do you write K-pop? How do you even figure out how to do that?
I never listened to Blackpink or BTS in my life. But they send me a brief, and in that brief is a bunch of music, and you just digest it and you go, okay. Like, look, after I've been composing now for 40 years? Oh, ouch. So you understand, all music has a common thread that runs through it. Especially when you're writing, like there's intros, verses, choruses.
Sure.
Those things don't really ever change. Just the components change. In Korean pop, it's like, well, the bass is going to be a synth bass, and then the guitar parts are going to be keyboard parts, and then there's really sort of specific things inside that genre that make it what it is. Just as country music, you would add a steel guitar and a fiddle. It's look, look what we just went through with country music. That was all 80s rock writers writing the new country music.
Repackaged, yeah.
Repackaged. It's like it's 80s hard rock repackaged as country. You drop the voice, an octave, and you add steel guitar and banjo, but it's still the same. It's still that same way of writing. So that's my point.
That's cool. What else do you have coming out? Like, what was this thing like Summer of '88? You're writing the soundtrack for that. Sounds really cool.
Yeah. So Summer '88 is a cool thing that I'm doing. I have a pal named Andrew Oy, who's really big in the TV music supervision world. So like he writes for, every show you've watched, he probably has a piece in it. So he lives here as well. And we started writing some stuff for Netflix together. And we came up with this idea of like, well, with Netflix, Crucial Music's a company that handles most of Netflix stuff in terms of music for the series. So we just asked them, said, look, if we write you a book of material, can we do it non-exclusively? Can we, compose this? Because shows like we were writing for like Cobra Kai and stuff like that. There's a lot of
love that 80s,
show. Sort of based shows, right? Stranger Things is using. So we're seeing a trend in the TV industry to harken back to the 80s and have some sort of legitimate sounding music. So for us, we're like, well, why don't we just compose this soundtrack, and then we can let people know, what shows they're in. But it essentially will be a soundtrack, but a soundtrack for a bunch of different shows.
Oh, okay.
So we created this kind of custom palette of music that fits that era. So we just said, 1988, we're going to compose a whole album that's going to appear in all these shows, and then we can release the record. So that's exactly what we've been doing. We just finished a track last night. Another track for Netflix. They asked us, can you write us some stripper rock?
Oh, that's funny. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, so we did. We wrote like a Motley Crue kind of track.
Nice.
It's good, man.
That's really cool. Now, and then are you going to be doing some live shows? You're on this what is it? Indoor Summer in Hamburg. You're going to play as a solo artist.
So every year, that's right. And every year I go out and I do, pre-pandemic, I would be going to Australia, over to Europe, whatever, just doing solo shows, which I can do the Paul Laine stuff and do my Danger stuff and a little bit of Defiance, right?
Yeah.
So I get offered these things every year, and that's one of the shows that I'm doing. I just got a bunch of other shows coming up next year. Touch wood, should everything be okay in terms of travel and COVID and
all right,
all the insurance things that go along with that. So
would you have shows on the West Coast then, like maybe in LA or Vegas, or I'm in Arizona now, so but I could drive 5 hours.
Yeah, not so far. Sorry, man.
But it could happen, right? What was there talk of, like, what was this story I heard? Like, is there talk of doing Danger reunion with both you and Ted or something? Or what was this?
Yeah, that's been brought up a few times. And we're all down with it. Huh. So we'll see if it happens. A lot of that talk was happening just, again, pre-pandemic. And then, all of this happened. And I don't even know what promoters exist anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just, the obvious ones are, but that it killed a lot of promoters who had shows booked and had to hand back the money, had to cancel.
Yeah, that sucks. Well, you could also do like some more of these festival type thing. That seems like a good gig, or like the cruises and stuff. Or like, if you have any offers for that? Or?
Sure. Yeah. There's talk of us doing the, because Danger's already done it a couple times. Sorry. What is that called? Monsters of Rock cruises. Talk of us doing that with the Defiants, which is cool. And if we do the Danger, the full, both eras of the Danger thing, I'm sure that will, that may get offered to us as well. Again, at the end of the day, I'm the kind of guy, like, until it's for sure, it's all just talk.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Anything else that's up in the air? Any other projects you're working on?
Yeah, I'm doing this other thing with another buddy of mine who's in the Blood Red Saints, a guy, Lee Revel. He's a guitar player out of Manchester, UK. So we got a little side project called Set Junkies, which is, again,
that's a cool name.
Yeah, we just like Lee and I became friends 30 years ago. We met on I was doing Headbangers Ball in Milton Keynes and Manchester, UK. And I think he was playing for Gary Hughes or Glenn Hughes, somebody. I don't know. Lee's like Lee is the go-to guy, one of those go-to guys in England. Like when an American artist is coming over, he gets the session gig, to put the band together, and particularly if it's a solo artist. So anyways, him and I were playing this Gods of AOR festival 30 years ago. And we always just said, one day we're going to do a band, dude.
All right.
So I got him the gig in television after we remained friends from that day until now. And when I got the TV gig, I went over to Europe and I was doing some shows with him. And I'm like, dude, you want in on this? And he's like, yeah. So I go, maybe we should do our band thing at the same time. So while we were composing for TV shows, we started putting aside songs,
So what kind of music is Jet Set Junkies?
Jet Set Junkies is way heavier. Yeah, way heavier and more modern.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got the first single we've got is a song called Light It Up that's coming. It's going to come out. We were supposed to put it out in June, but then we both just got ridiculously busy with TV, and we're like, we don't have enough time to put the attention into this. Like, it's done. It's just, I don't even have time to do social media at this point. I'm like working a million different TV shows, doing the Defiants record, and of course getting yelled at by the record company, like, it better be in on time.
When's the deadline?
January, like, this is why we're freaking out. We'll get it done, but our deadline is January 31st.
Okay.
But we're just starting to retrack. Normally we'd be like, have an extra month, and then we'd be a little, but this record took so long to write because of my schedule, because of my TV schedule was overwhelming this year. And that's because, last year, a lot of shows they just shut down. Right. So there was a race to this year to get like new content out and get the shows that were already sort of halfway through production finished. And so I have literally been working every day. I work 12 hours a day most days.
Damn, you're still putting in the hours.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. I chose this prison, by the way.
Yeah, well, you love it though, right? Because it's music. I mean, it's not like you're doing accounting or something.
Yeah, no, I love it, but I'm getting burnt out. I'm looking forward to the Defiance record being done, and I think I'm going to take a month off in February maybe, and just not think about music for 4 weeks.
Well, there you go. You should come down to Arizona. It's nice and sunny down here. You could do some shows. And
I've only been down there once. I've been to, where did I go? Wherever Camelback Mountain is.
Yeah. It's beautiful. That. Yeah, Camelback's a great hike. Yeah, I mean, it's like from now until like March, it's like this is the place to be in the world, I think. The weather's amazing.
I hate you right now.
That's why I moved here from Issaquah. So yeah.
I know. Well, listen, right? Like when you grow up in the Pacific Northwest, people do not understand like seasonal affective disorder.
It's real.
It's real, man. The rain comes in, and there's a reason grunge music came out.
Yes. No. It's funny though, because my girlfriend's from here. So we take her back to Washington and she's just like, she's looking at these trees that are huge. And then it made me appreciate it way more. Cause now I'm like, cause I always grew up with that. I was like, oh, trees, who cares about that? It's like, but then you appreciate the other stuff about Washington, the trees, the lakes, the mountains, those things are, but still the sunshine. It's just something about that. That's for me, I love it. So.
Yeah. I'm very jealous. I want to, my future plans are to be, I think Bruno wants to move to Arizona. So he wants to cash out of New York and move there. And I want to spend winters down there.
You should. It's amazing. Yeah, if you can get a second, you can get houses down here cheap too, compared to like Washington and probably Canada too, I'm assuming.
Anything is cheaper than here. I live in one of the most expensive, like Vancouver is one of the most expensive cities in the world.
Is it really?
Oh yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Look it up. Yeah, people work as far as cost of living in Vancouver, a couple, if you're, husband and wife, 75% of your income is spent on just renting.
Wow.
So it's very, very hard. And so China and Japan bought up this city and because we have a huge, much the way in Seattle, huge Asian business community, right?
Right.
And so that made it unaffordable for. That's not a racial thing at all. That's just commerce.
No. I think I heard the same thing in Washington. I don't know. I didn't do the research on this, but that a lot of Asian, like people in China, businessmen or whatever, would buy houses in Washington because they have a limit or something there. They can only buy so much. So then they buy these houses in Washington and then they sell them or rent them out or whatever. So it's like a business thing.
Yeah. It's an investment opportunity.
Investment,
sure.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of, you can't blame folks for wanting to get out of China. There's lots of people just trying to get here and start a new life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, come on down, do some shows. That'd be fun. That'd be cool. But yeah, it sounds like you're real busy, so I'll let you get back to doing all that work and stuff. I do like to end each episode with a charity though. Is there a charity or a nonprofit or a cause that is near and dear to your heart?
Yeah. My favorite charity here is Children's Hospital.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So, yeah, it's just it's bcchildrens.ca.
Okay, I'll put that in the link along with or put that in the notes along with your links to. Do you have an actual website or?
I just have Facebook and I have my studio website.
Studio website, okay.
Yeah, it's
but I know
studios.com.
Yeah, people can buy the Defiants. You guys just are re-releasing that on vinyl, right? That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, well, Frontiers Records is re-releasing it. Yeah, so that just came out. Yeah, I didn't even know. I just like some random.
I saw you share it and I was like, oh, that's cool. So yeah, people should buy that, and then if they have a few extra dollars, they can throw that towards Children's Hospital.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Okay, well, thanks so much for doing this, Paul. It's been a blast.
Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Paul Laine, everybody. His current bands are The Defiants. He's got 2 records out with them now and a 3rd one on the way. And Set Junkies is the other band, so look for new music from that one. I want to thank Paul for coming on the show. And make sure to follow him on Facebook for updates with all his stuff. And while you're on Facebook, I would love for you to follow my page, the Chuck Shoot Podcast, as well, so you can keep up with future episodes and everything I'm doing. And again, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on YouTube, or I will hunt you down and forcibly make you subscribe, and nobody wants that. So just subscribe. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your day, and remember, shoot for the moon.